Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pink Nest, another edition. This time it's going to be an amazing episode. I'm having Harriet here with me today. Leadership and speaking mentor, firewalk guide, speaker and warrior. I love it. I really do. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining me in this podcast.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you and your listeners. And I just realized it wasn't planned, but I'm wearing pink. So I feel like a member of the Pink Nest now.
Yeah, look at the color of my hair and the background and everything. Yeah, pink is by far my favorite color. I have to admit it. I think colors are amazing. So
yes, me too. For sure.
Excuse me. Let's start with a childhood. This is something that I always start my podcast with. How was Harriet as a child? What was your childhood like? And what kind of girl were you growing up?
Sure. I always find this question really beautiful because actually I had a lovely childhood from, I would say, the age to 0 to 7, which a lot of people say are your more formative years. I was very blessed to be in a beautiful space. I was adopted, but I was adopted very young, so it didn't have a huge impact for me. And I came into a very loving and very supportive family. I was bold, I was expressive, I was what some people, those that describe it accurately, would call a raving ADHD wonderful ball of energy. But what changed for me and kind of led a lot to the work that I'm doing today was then when I was diagnosed with ADHD. And for me, my childhood very quickly kind of changed. So that freedom to be expressive, to be impulsive, to be spontaneous, and not just that, to be loved and supported and to have joy and laughter within that space. When I was diagnosed with ADHD, I always say it wasn't the ADHD, it was the approach. It was how people spoke to me and the changes that happened when I received the diagnosis. So suddenly what would have been embraced of just being Harriet became stop showing off, stop seeking attention, go and take your tablets. So actually I had a beautiful childhood, but then at the age of 7, 8, I suddenly had this big flip that led to me as a child kind of questioning, like, well, how do I belong? How do I behave? Because it now I'm being told to be quiet, So I had a beautiful childhood, but there was also a big moment of shift and feeling very kind of misunderstood and not knowing how to fit in or belong, I would say.
And do you remember what led to the diagnosis? Is it something that your parents noticed, or why did you?
I mean, my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was my mom, and we've been through our journey. I think a lot of mums and daughters do, but she and I really know now that it came very much from a place of love, from a place of support. She heard about ADHD. She's a nurse herself. She's very into the medicine and the scientific world, so she's kind of always learning, researching, learning in that world and practicing within that world as well. So she heard about it, and then she started reading these books. And as I said at the beginning, there's many different descriptions. So I don't just want to say like I'm a classic, all of them, but what she was reading and what was being described, impulsivity, creativity, determination, bold, it can sometimes be bossy. Yes, a lack of concentration. But again, I don't want that to be misinterpreted, because focus is more challenging for me. And at the same time, there are some very easy ways to support my focus. And if it's something I love doing, I'm in and I'm super. So again, I don't want to be blasé about the description of ADHD. I think it's very different for each individual, each unique personality. I don't want to umbrella it, but kind of the classic traits I showed up in spades in. So my mum very quickly sort of diagnosed me herself, then took me to a specialist. And as I say, I think it came from a place of love. And my mom is a very classic English, like British stiff upper lip. Like we do the best, comes from a very achievers family. So in her mind, it was, how can I help her learn? How can I not let ADHD be a detriment? You know, at that time, all of these phrases like problem child, they're so difficult, they'll never get a job, they can't be in a normal school. Like all these phrases were being written about in the media, shown on the television. So she kind of, whilst it came from a place of helping me, she allowed that chatter to become part of her language. So my wonderful, loving mum, still being loving, started saying things like, go and take your tablets, stop showing off, stop seeking attention. And that confusion, especially with it being my mum, led to me really not understanding and not feeling like I belong as a kid. And I really want to say that she did it from a space of love, but actually, and we've spoken about this since, actually the way she did approach it had quite a detrimental effect on me as a child.
Mm. Yeah. For me, it's similar story, but I was late diagnosed. But growing up in Eastern Europe, like I did, I mean, I think UK still is and was also back then very much different to what we were growing up in, because everything connected to being different, mental health, everything, yeah, just everything that's out of the ordinary. We are not speaking about it. Still not
Yeah.
today, or very much less than in UK, for example. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
And how did you
Fast,
find it for you? I was just
um,
curious how you found it for you when you were diagnosed, especially as it was later.
I always knew it's something different. I'm different. But I think this comes from very, very young age, because I was able to read when I was 2 years old. So this is,
Wow.
yeah, it's so all these things were the things that I remember, but obviously also things that people told me about, because I grew up with my grandparents. And my grandma always used to say that I was extremely bored at school. So they were giving me things from the library to read during classes, because I knew already everything that they were learning, like my classmates. So I guess, even though I'm laughing to this now, I guess for me growing up, this was quite challenging and probably also difficult, for a young girl to be just different in a class. I remember vividly, I mean, when I was older, obviously, I remember sitting in a class with these books like lexicons and, these big books of whatever, Guinness Book of
Yeah.
Records, encyclopedia of this, some of that. And yeah, I remember all of this stuff, and I guess I just always knew there is something. And getting the diagnosis was basically for me just, just a dot
Information.
at the end of the sentence. Yeah, basically
Yeah.
nothing else. So for me, it was not that impactful as many people who are late diagnosed acknowledge.
Yeah.
But I guess this is just because I'm also working in this space. I'm also a social worker, did my PhD in psychology. So I kind of know a lot about these things. So
Yeah.
yeah, probably it was just that, as I said, dot at the end of the sentence,
Yeah. Tick the box.
and not that detrimental. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing.
No problem. I'm happy to share it. Maybe somebody will find themselves in what we are saying. And maybe we
And
can
I
help
think that's
somebody.
the beauty of it, even just us two sharing a completely different experience, and we're only two people, right? So I think that's
Mm,
so powerful. Like everybody, even within ADHD, like no two people are the same just because they both have ADHD, and all experiences are different. So for whoever is listening and resonates with what we're talking about, like just kind of trust your own journey within that. You can have support, you can have help, you can have guidance. But again, it's kind of a unique experience for everybody.
definitely is. Back to you, because this is yours. Fast forward, you spent years as a care home manager, which is something I found really interesting. This is actually an enormous responsibility, isn't it? And I would really like to know what drew you to this kind of work, and what did those years teach you about people mostly? I'm really curious to hear.
Sure. I think there's an easy and not so inspiring or interesting part of it, but there is a lot that I learned within it. Care homes was a family business, so it was something I actually had been a horse riding instructor, so totally different world. And I just fell into it at, I think I was kind of early mid 20s, because it was the family business. So I started doing some care work. And I think, I know this a lot of questions, and what you share is around sort of stepping into that leadership side. And I think without realizing it, I was naturally in various different areas of my life, whether it was a netball team that I ended up coaching, whether it was part-time work in a restaurant to earn some money that I ended up being the assistant manager. I kind of naturally found myself ending up in leadership positions. So I actually joined because it was easy. It was a family business, and I was able to get just some extra work as a carer to help out. But again, that sort of process started developing. I became a senior carer. I became one of the leadership, I forget what they call it now, senior leaders within the home. And then it was very unexpectedly, by chance, if you believe in coincidence, looking back, it was divine timing. But at that moment, I would never have chosen to become a care home manager. It wasn't in my path. It wasn't in my future. To be honest, I'm not really sure what was. I was a very fly by the seat of my pants, live life, love life, didn't really have a plan. And it was just before Christmas that the current manager left. I won't go into that, but she left the business. Now, for anyone in that world, you know that Christmas does not stop. It's not like you can just put residents on the shelf and shut for a couple of weeks. And naturally, it also becomes an immensely busy and very pressured time of year, because a lot of staff love you all. Some of you are amazing and show up and stay committed. And I bless you. I admire you, and you're amazing. But there's also a lot of people that like to go sick, right? It's just that time of year that they want to be with their families. And I understand that. So it's a very busy, very stressful time of year. And when your manager walks out just before that time, again, you can imagine for my parents, but also for the company, it was scary, it was fearful, it was stressful. So I just sort of said, how about I do it on a temporary basis? I know the home, I know what's required over Christmas. I'll do it temporarily while you look for a new manager. And it was just a very easy solution to help an immediate crisis, not crisis, but difficult time. So then I stepped in, and of course, naturally, I ended up doing that role. I did it for about a year and a half, and I learned so many things. But what I really realized, that it wasn't my true passion. And I loved people. I love person-centered care. But when I look at my mum, she walks, talks, and lives this work. She's so passionate about it. She goes and speaks in different conferences about it. She consults other homes on their care. She's always learning, always reading, so in it. It's her world, it's her passion, it's her purpose. And it just wasn't mine. And I started to realize that. I realized I was working 70 to 80 hours a week, if not more than that at times. I wasn't seeing my fiance at the time, let alone friends, family. So I think, like a lot of people, I just, I wasn't diagnosed as such, but you would probably call it a burnout. I just got to the point where it's this is too much. I'm not happy. I'm not enjoying it. I'm in tears a lot. And so that moment that I think a lot of people experience came of enough is enough. There must be more to life. And just to wrap up a long share, I was sitting in my office at the time, and it had this big clear window in front of me, and everyone can see into the office, the residents, the staff, the visitors, the nurses, anyone that comes into the home. It's right at the front. And I just had one of those mornings, everyone can relate to this, where everything was going wrong. Nothing was working. Nothing was going right. I think someone else had phoned in sick or whatever it was. And I just cracked and I started crying. And I mean, ugly crying, mascara down the face, snot bubbles, right in front of this window. It's so fast, so quick, so intense that I just didn't even have time or think about moving. And I just picked up, there was a local newspaper nearby. I just picked up the newspaper and hid my face with it. It was to hide myself. But the universe has a wonderful way of working. There was a tiny little advert that just caught my eye, and it said, do you want more flexibility? Do you want more freedom? Do you want to be your own boss? And you can imagine, in that state of mind, I was just yes,
absolutely.
I do. I'm in. I don't know what it is or what I'm signing up for, but I'm in before I've even met with the lady. So again, to cut a long story short, for me, that was the moment that I realized, that I decided, that I said, enough is enough. I have so much respect for people in that world, and for who are doing that job. And I still love to give back and support where I can. But it just wasn't for me. So I stepped out and I pursued this random crazy dream of becoming an international speaker.
Mm. Yeah, but I always say these jobs, I mean, social work as well. I think like teacher, care home manager, those things that involve people so heavily, are just a calling. It's not just a profession, it's a calling. And
Yeah.
you cannot be a good teacher if it's not your calling. You can, of course, go there and earn money and everything, but you are not a good teacher. And it's really, it's very much different from most of the profession, let's put it like this, because it is involved. I mean, it's involving other people in a way, and in a way where people are also most vulnerable at. So I think it's it's
And I
absolutely a
think
calling. I think.
and you see that, and again, I think that's not that we're leading the podcast down that road, but I think that is what's difficult in the care world, because there are people that do it because they need a job and it's
Mm,
money. And then you really see the people that, as you say, have that calling and it's just in their heart.
mm,
They just want to help and they want to care and they just give so much, and it's beautiful, powerful, and it's necessary. So I have
mm,
so much admiration for it. But it just wasn't something for
mm.
me.
So yeah, next to your step of your career, speaking, coaching, firewalking. I love this one. Do tell me more.
Well,
What
as
do
I
you
say,
do?
that advert was what caught me, and just to lead into it, that was actually for network marketing. It was for a network marketing company, and as I say, I was in that state of desperation. So I just said yes, 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 yes. Again, I realized that wasn't for me, but it was an escape path. I always say I don't teach this as a strategy. I think it takes a very specific personality type and a specific circumstance for this to work. I'm very impulsive. I'm very driven. I act in spite of fear naturally, but also I've learned tools and techniques to keep doing that. And I was in, as I shared with you, I was in a state of desperation. For a lot of people, if you don't tick those boxes, I think people, there's that expression, burn the boats, burn the bridges. I think sometimes people take a big jump and they haven't set themselves up in a way that will be sustainable and not easy, but allow them to build the business in the way that works for them. So I'm not recommending this as a strategy, but as I say, I quit my job and I just went all in on this network marketing. Within 6 weeks, I got a couple of promotions. As I say, I was just in a state of urgency, desperation. I wanted to match the old wage I was receiving. So I progressed very quickly because I just threw myself in, and that is my personality style. But within that, I found personal development. I think that's one of the great things about network marketing is they go hand in hand with teaching personal development. And when I found that world, boom, I'm sure like you, like anybody listening, it just kind of blew my mind. And I just saw how much that we just do because we just do it, rather than really being able to understand yourself, your thoughts, your behaviors, to heal, to let go of past, to not do things just because that's the way you do them and that's what you've got ingrained in your subconscious mind, but actually to shine a light on that, to even asking yourself. And for some people this could be fresh and new, and for some people it's like, I do that all the time, it's so important. It's
Mm,
different again for everybody. But just being able to pause and go like, what do I actually want from life? Like instead of just running that wheel of working at the care home, or so many people have this job for like 30, 40, 50 years, and some people love it, and I'm not knocking that, but many people, including myself, don't just pause and go, what do I actually want to do? What do I want my life to look like? So I became obsessed with personal development, with growth. I had therapy, I had healing, I did all sorts of different things for me, and that led me to, how do I give this back? I started off as an NLP coach doing mindset work, but I realized, just being honest, and everybody, you all have different strengths and weaknesses. We're all human. I am not the best coach. I'm a great mentor. I'm great in certain one-to-one environments. But if you want kind of one-to-one ongoing mindset work, I'm not your best coach. I can recommend many, and I think it's so powerful and so important, but I'm not your best coach. However, when I discovered the world of speaking, running events, creating deeply transformational spaces. Now I've connected with my purpose. Now I've connected with my passion, my mission, what lights me up, and what I love, seeing the shifts and the transformation in others. So as soon as I found that, and like I say, it was a path. I think so often we expect our passion, we expect our mission to become very clear and to know exactly what we want to do. But I believe if you start following the path of your initial desire, it naturally unfolds. So I kind of left the care home, did the network marketing, did my own healing and work, which is always ongoing, did the coaching, and then stepped into the world of speaking, running events, and of course, naturally progressing to training other speakers too. And the firewalking, along with the arrow, the glass, it's just an experiential breakthrough. Like I said a moment ago, I think coaching, mentoring, all the different modalities are so powerful, so powerful, and all serve a
Mhm.
place. But when someone can really connect with themselves, their own potential, their own power, their own possibility, that's magic. They're not hearing it externally. They're not being told it. They're not being asked questions about it. They're feeling it. They're experiencing it within them. And that's why I love using the fire and many different experiences that just accelerate the process of someone connecting to the warrior within.
Yeah, I would. This is one of the things that I wanted to ask you about firewalking, because it is literal, but also deeply symbolic in a way, because um, it does certain things. The ritual itself and the whole everything does certain things to people. Explain us a little bit more about this. I'm really curious because it is the experience must be unique to to most of the people, but still there are some things that are, yeah, in a way symbolic to everybody.
Absolutely. Have you ever done a firewalk?
No, but I
I
know
think
quite a lot
especially
about it.
with like your paying your boldness, I feel the warrior within you. I think it's something that you'd enjoy and you'd take a lot from. There might be someone doing it near you. Just a little idea for you. I think the fire, as you say, it is something that can be used in so many different ways. And just to give two very contrasting and yet still deeply powerful experiences, we run a firewalk for 30 people where it's much more I would say logical. It's moving through fear. It's I don't care who you are, what background you come from. When you stand in front of fire, that conditioning kicks in. Like it's too hot, you're gonna get burnt. Like
Mm,
fear shows up again in varying ways. Some people can be terrified. Some people can just be a little bit rattled by it, but still in a state of I'm willing to do this. So again, it's different for everybody. But fear shows up. And if we think in our everyday life, like how often
yeah.
does fear show up? You know,
Mm,
whether it's sending the email, having the difficult conversation, asking for the
yeah.
sale, increasing your price, like whatever it is, right? There's so many examples we can give for that. But what I love with the fire is when you stand in front of that fire, fear shows up. And in that moment, you get that choice. Now, of course, we've done some sessions, we've done some facilitation leading up to that moment. But in that moment of feeling the fear, we have the choice. Do I feel the fear and like run and let it stop me doing what I want to do? Or do I feel the fear, accept the feeling and choose
uh,
my response? And then people walk. So we have that more very connected to moving through fear, to choosing your own power, to lighting the fire within you. And I think that's probably one of the most common ways of using firewalking. And that's the one that we use a lot of our events. But once a year within our retreat, within a a much smaller group of people, I also do a full moon walk where people end up
mhm,
like just in silence, fire standing. And I would say at that point we've shifted from logical. We're no longer in our head of like, fire. Now we're in a space of like, I'm deeply connected. Everything
uh-huh.
is one. I trust this space. I trust this process. And they literally, it's just magnificent. You've probably seen images or pictures of people just standing in this trance almost, and it's not a cult, but
Mhm,
standing in this
mhm,
state of complete trust, complete freedom, complete connectivity. I would say very connected to their power, but in a peaceful way, like not in like a yes I can do this,
mhm,
but in a core like knowing, a deep knowing that you are always and always have been and always will be more than enough. And if you just choose to put your mind, body, and soul into what matters to you, then you can absolutely achieve it. So I think that's what people get from firewalking. But again, there's different ways in which you can experience that process.
Yeah, fire in general is connected to our ancestral lineage for all of us because it's something that connects us actually everywhere. And it's also a great meditative thing, like lighting a candle and just looking into
Very
the
much so.
candle. Mm.
Very much. And interestingly enough, and I think it was when I kind of started opening myself up more as well, right? Because that's when we can attract and bring in. But particularly last year, I was sort of just surprised to begin with, and then it just became normal, right? Like with anything, of the number of women that came forward and were asking about the firewalk or doing the firewalk because they had felt in a past life or within their lineage someone had been burnt. Uh, on the
Hmm.
fire, and especially within the UK, the Scotland have just released this big shift in their acknowledgement of how they treated women slash what they would call witches at that time,
Mm.
with the fire. So it's really interesting to see people coming forward wanting to walk the fire to heal something from previous times.
Yeah. Do you know that there is now a master's program in witchcraft in the UK?
I didn't.
You
I'm
can
not surprised,
actually
but I didn't.
you can actually study it. Yeah, it has a little bit different name, but I mean, witchcraft, not what many people will think. It's not a cult, but
Yeah.
really like this ancestral. And I think it's great. And
Yeah, I
I
think it's
yeah.
brilliant. I'm seeing it pop up a lot. I was at an event, it was actually at the end of last year, and there was a session around like healing the witch wound. So I think more people are talking about it and becoming more comfortable to share it now.
That's true. Tell us a little bit more about your methodology, Speak and Rise, which helps entrepreneurs stop overthinking and start speaking with confidence. I think public speaking is also one of these things that a lot of people struggle with, consciously or subconsciously. People are having issues with it. Tell us a little bit more.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening that does get that feeling like, "Ugh," you are not alone. I think we always talk about public speaking and the fear, right? That's just become a very common, the fear of public speaking. It's the number one fear in the world. But actually, it's not. Like it's an umbrella of fear of judgment, fear of making a mistake, fear of being challenged, fear of success. There's so many nuances within that umbrella. So we think it's this one massive fear, but actually it's a combination of a
Mm.
variety of different fears that can show up for people. So naturally and always, no matter what level I tend to work with people from especially beginners and people just getting started, but even seasoned speakers, fear shows up in one way or another. The reason driving that can change. It might shift to imposter syndrome. It might shift to, I'm great speaking, I love it, but when I sell, I freeze up. Right. So,
Mm.
so fear, no matter what level we are, like with anything in life, is something that consistently shows up. So, a very quick method that everyone can take away from this, and no matter where you are, and utilize, is the word BAF, BAF. Short, simple, easy to remember. You can use it before you go on stage, or just in any moment in your life where fear shows up. What is it? Super simple. Take a long, deep breath. Yes, you didn't need to hear Harriet, this weird woman with half a shaved head, show up and remind you that a long, deep breath naturally calms our mind. If you're having a panic attack, what's the first thing that someone of authority will do? They will tell you to take long, deep breaths, or they will hand you a bag to take long, deep breaths in. It calms our mind, it calms our heart, it calms our pulse, and it naturally calms our parasympathetic nervous system. But that's not always enough, right? Because you take that breath, you calm your mind, and then you think about the thing again and you start panicking. So, first of all, long, deep breaths. Second, awareness. What am I thinking about that's freaking me out? Something that I speak about all the time. I train speakers, but before we even think about your external communication, how are you speaking to yourself? What does your internal communication do? So breath, awareness, focus. Notice what you're speaking about and change your focus. And again, you can use this in many areas of your life, but particularly with public speaking. When we're in a state of fear, we are nervous about what could go wrong for us. What if I make a
Mm.
mistake? What if they ask me a question I can't answer? I don't want to sell, right? There's many different reasons that fear can show up, but we're thinking about ourselves when we come out of our head and into our heart. Come out of your head into your heart. How am I helping the audience? Your focus is no longer on what could go wrong for you. It's on what could go right for the people that you are speaking to. And for those of you that are nervous about selling, for the people you are selling to. What helps? What's the benefit? What's valuable? If one person in that room takes notes on everything you share and walks away and executes, what difference could that make in your life? Now you're in a state of service, of helping. And as amazing as our minds are, we cannot be in fear and faith. Yes, fear and faith at the same time. So instead of thinking about what could go wrong, and I know again, this sounds simple, it's a case of repetition and taking action in spite of fear. But if we can calm our mind and switch from a disempowered state to a supportive, empowered state, it doesn't mean that the fear is never going to be there again. It means you've changed from fear to faith. It means you're in service and you're focused on your audience. And of course, there's many other different ways you can improve depending whether you're just getting started and fear is the big thing, or you're a seasoned speaker, you know how to speak well, but you're finding you're not making the impact and the conversions in the room that you really want to. So again, it varies at different levels. And without turning this into a public speaking event, I'm not going to list too much, but one of the most basic, simple tools that I use with anyone and everyone I work with is BAF, breath awareness focus. And that can create such a shift in how you show up.
It's also worth mentioning because I had another recording today and we were speaking about the inner critic and the inner voice. I think that nobody thinks as bad about you as you think about yourself. I think this is really the most challenging bit. And we have to learn how to either silence the voice or just ignore it in a way, or start thinking differently about yourself, because I'm 100% sure that this is the most negative talk probably you can get if you're not working on yourself, for sure.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% spot on. And again, I'm not saying that you like wave a magic wand and you go from the worst critic in the world to becoming your best friend. Like, that's not going to happen. But in time, you can shift to being more in a state of criticizing yourself to being more in a state of not like being in ego and like, I'm amazing, I'm fantastic, but actually just knowing like, I'm good, I'm great, I can do this, I've got this. Speaking to yourself in a way you would speak to your best friend. And it does take time, but it's one of the most powerful things that we can do in any area, especially in public speaking, but in any area of your life. You are the only person that is with you all day, every day, in every single different environment. So treat yourself well, treat yourself as you would a friend.
Absolutely, totally agree. Wrapping up the conversation, I can't imagine it's already half an hour. For someone listening right now who is maybe afraid of public speaking or has something important to say but just keeps thinking of stepping out, like the same thing we're speaking now, like self-doubt, whatever the reason, what would you most want them to hear from you today?
Trust yourself and speak in spite of the fear. You're not going to wave a wand and get rid of the fear. But when you do show up, when you do speak up, when you move through the messy magnificence of it all, then you will find yourself becoming more comfortable and confident. Confident isn't given to you so you can speak confidently. It's brought about by you speaking up when you're scared. And just very quickly, I would also say, reach out, connect. This is not a sales pitch. I'm not selling you anything, but just reach out and ask me that question. And if I turn around to you and we make an agreement, suddenly you've got an accountability, you've got support, you've declared it, and you're more likely to take action. So the real answer to that question, for anyone that stayed with us all this time, thank you, you're awesome. But there was something within this conversation that kept you here. And if there is something you want to say, if you do want to speak up more, if you're already speaking, but you want to sell your offers with confidence and certainty because you know what you provide is amazing, then just message me, ask the question, start the conversation so that you start the energetical shift and the aligned action that needs to follow with that.
And the rest will follow. I can also guarantee you that. It's just that first step that's always usually the hardest. But eventually, when you start the ball rolling, everything else just falls into place usually.
Exactly. Exactly. I shared it earlier, right? I showed the story. I had no idea when I was snot crying at that office desk
Yeah.
that it would lead to me doing what I loved, but it was the first step of deciding that I can't do this anymore and following something new that felt good. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And thank you for this space. I love your podcast. I love your conversations. I love the community and the platform that you're providing for people to feel inspired, to feel motivated, but also to hear like the real rawness. I love that you're
Mm.
not about these polished conversations. You're about the real, the raw, the inspirational, but also the grit behind the scenes. I call it the messy magnificence, right? You really speak it to both sides, and I think that's very powerful. So thank you for your podcast and your space.
Oh, thank you so much. This is really kind to hear. Thank you. And of course, thank you for taking the time for being my guest. I think it was a really lovely discussion. And I would definitely encourage everybody to get in touch, even if it's just a chat or a message or just anything actually. Do absolutely get in touch with Harriet. I think it would be very helpful in case you need it. Thank you so much, Harriet.
Thank you, Nika. Been a pleasure. Thank you to everybody listening and looking forward to connect.
Thank you.